Now tell me what it was like the second time when you went back. Had things changed very much in the year? Was there any culture shock when you went back?
Oh, going to Kenya, there's no culture shock for me. The culture shock is coming back, absolutely. But going back it was an incredible experience because I've been planning on going back for just under a year. So I had been on the back burner of my mind for quite some time. So being able to go back and then be able to bring with me over $20,000 to help the orphanage, I was very excited. But certainly what I was most excited about was seeing all the children again. The first time they see you, they didn't know I was coming, so their facial expressions, and I think I just got completely tackled and hugged. It was quite a one-of-a-kind experience in that sense, because they do have volunteers come through, but not many return, and so they were surprised I'd come back, and so it was a lot of fun being back there.
And of course the children were happy you were there. The directors must have been quite pleased with the fundraising that you had done as well.
She was. When I had been corresponding in the beginning of the year with her, I said that the goal was going to be $5,000. That's what I'd hoped towards. But with fundraising, as you know, and as your listeners know, there's no guarantee of raising $1. And so I was hoped to raise $5,000 in the beginning, but it became very clear by about Christmas time that we'd exceeded that goal. So I hadn't actually told the director how much had been fundraised, because it wasn't until the last week before I left for Kenya that the money went from about $10,000 to $20,000. So there was quite a jump in the amount raised, and so I was still reeling in shock a little bit with that huge jump the last week before I left for Kenya. So we were sitting down in her office, and we were devising a budget plan. We had agreed on a lot of things, but she didn't know that we had a lot more money to do things than initially planned. So I said, well, Mary, would you like to know how much has been raised? It'll help us devise a budget, obviously. And so I wrote the figure down for her in Canadian dollars, and she was just blown away.
Now, how did you raise all the money, and how did you get $10,000 in 1 week?
Well, it was quite an experience. I started off with creating a website, and from that, I sold some T-shirts. I sold some to a friend, a volunteer in Taiwan, but mainly I would say a lot of the support came just from independent donations from the Peterborough community. People were incredibly generous, which I was just astounded with. And certainly a huge supporter was game support of St. Catherine's Catholic Elementary School in the fall, and so they actually ended up raising over $8,000. And so that was an incredible amount to put towards Kenya Hope. But in January, they had bought, I think it was 300 T-shirts. So they had raised about $3,000 through that. And when I told you that the money doubled in the last week, they had a check presentation ceremony, and they had raised an additional $5,000. So their contribution totaled over $8,000. So that was surprising. And actually, on May 1st, we had an art auction hosted at the Art School of Peterborough. And we had a lot of community artists donate work. My sister's an artist, and she donated about 7 pieces. And that night, actually, the evening before I left, we raised $5,000 from the art auction.
Wonderful. Now, this has obviously been a wonderful experience for you and for the children as well. Just one thing I want to ask you, there's been a lot of talk recently, a lot on the radio, in newspapers and so on, talk about how foreign aid has actually harmed Africa because there's a reliance on it rather than investment in businesses which can produce sustainable development. I just wonder, what's your thought on that?
Well, Kenya Hope was created for the children to meet their nutritional needs. And I certainly can see the point or the side of debating whether or not financial contribution through aid really is the best avenue for helping impoverished Africa. But it's a great argument. But you take anybody and you put them at that orphanage with half a heart, and you ask about whether or not the money should go there or should it be invested in business. You see those protein deficient bellies, and you see the thinning and discolored hair, and I would argue that maybe the long-term issue is restructuring how aid is contributed, but I don't think that allowing people to suffer through malnutrition so that business can become sustainable is necessarily the best option for the African youth, for the people who would be potentially running those businesses of tomorrow. So in terms of things like health, which is what Kenya Hope was created to help support, those are fundamental and primary needs. Yes, business does need to become sustainable, economies need to grow, but somebody suffering from malnutrition or in terms of aid, they really need immediate assistance. And I don't think that 25 years down the road of restructuring our aid is really going to provide them any assistance, because they probably won't still be living. So I do see the validity of the argument, but in terms of meeting needs, hunger comes first.
What about you? Will you be heading back to Africa, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. Kenya Hope is to raise another $5,000, and that's primarily to be able to feed the cows. It costs $2,000 to feed them per year, and hungry cows can't produce milk. But the other issue is that cows need to be bred annually and calves to actually produce milk. So I will be fundraising to continue with the milk program, but also I'm planning on returning in June of 2010 to bring those funds over as well.
So you won't just be returning to Africa, you'll be returning directly to the orphanage itself.
Oh, absolutely. I think if in the future, whenever my tour steps on that continent in Africa, I will have to find a way to make it to Kenya. That's sort of, I would have to say my heart's in Kenya right now. Just, knowing so many children, it's really sort of changed, I think, my outlook on life. And if I am in Africa, I'm sure I can find a way to get to Kenya.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That was Sarah Beck in conversation with ArtScio 9 grad Carolyn Maskens.